guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics Rotar and Twistoid 2-pack, which was exclusive to the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con. That's right, these guys came out towards the end of the vintage Masters of the Universe line, and they were very unique in the fact that, well, they were basically battle tops. So, it's going to be interesting to see how these guys were pulled off in the Classics line. Now, as you can see, they come in that window box packaging that we've seen for several other multi-packs, large-scale vehicles, and creatures in the Classics line. So the box is very familiar to what we've seen in the past, fully showcasing the two characters along with all of their accessories within. And when you flip that box around to the backside, we get a look at some of the other figures in the Classics lineup, as well as a brand new bio for both Twistoid and Rotar. Alright, so upon removing these guys from the package, the first thing you might notice is these guys have legs. Yeah, the vintage figures didn't have legs. They were basically half men, with tops for legs instead. And the whole idea behind those vintage figures was essentially a battle tops, or a spinjas, or a spin fighters, or whatever you want to call them. There have been multiple toys over the years where you basically would spin them as tops and then they would bang into each other. These were the Masters of the Universe version of that. But in the Classics lineup, one thing that they have now is a pair of legs. So it's interesting to see how this is done here, and don't worry, the legs are removable and we can add the tops on to make them look more like the vintage figures, and we're going to get to that in just a bit. But let's go ahead and start by talking about these legs. It's an interesting concept. When fans have talked about these over the years, they have often kind of mentioned that it might be neat to see a pair of legs come with these guys. Maybe they're robots, they can switch from legs to tops, whatever. And while I always thought that was an interesting idea, I gotta say, seeing them on the figures here, personally, I'm not a fan. They don't really fit the characters. Now, I will say that Rotar, being more of a humanoid looking guy, looks a little bit better with the legs, but Twistoid definitely seems off. Also, for one thing that really kind of makes it off, we do, once again, have those trap jaw legs that are reused again. So Twistoid's lower half is the same legs we've seen on Trap Jaw and several other characters who have used those same legs. It's one of those things that I think over the years many of us have kind of gotten a little bored of seeing. But the other thing that I don't really like about it is that the proportions just seem way off with Twistoid. He's a very unique looking character on top. I don't know if he's some sort of half alien, half robot, or what's going on with him, but he's got this bulky upper body that just doesn't seem to fit well with those skinnier trap jaw legs. So personally, not a big fan of the legs on these guys, but I'm happy for the fans that wanted to actually have the legs with these two figures. So let's go and talk about the detailing on these guys, and we'll mostly focus now on the upper bodies, because that is one place where these guys definitely excel, because the Horsemen did a fantastic job of capturing the look of these two characters from the vintage lineup and bringing them into Classics form. They've got very unique looks, as I noted already, so let's go ahead and start by taking a look at Twistoid here. He's got a great look to his upper body. I mentioned that he is kind of looking like a half alien, half robot. So his head is a very wide head. You can see he's kind of almost got these snake-like eyes or reptilian-like eyes underneath. He's got green flesh tone there, and he's wearing this really crazy purple helmet on top of that, and his arms have a very robotic look to him. You can see some great circuitry. Obviously, we got some reuse in the shoulders here, but the rest of the arms are all brand new, very blocky looking, got some nice two-tone paint jobs with a flat blue and a metallic blue, and then the hands are done in these really great kind of lime green clamps. So this guy is very different looking than a lot of characters that we've seen in the Classics lineup till now. I want to talk about that helmet too, because one thing that's pretty neat. On the vintage figures, the heads were non-posable. They were all like a solid sculpt because their bodies were just tops. If you look at the back of the head, the design back there with the orange and the blues almost looks like it could be a face as well. So one thing that's kind of neat on this guy is you could actually rotate the head around, and the back of the helmet almost looks like it could be also the front of a helmet. Maybe it's more of a robot face, or maybe this is just the outside of a helmet. I don't know, just something I thought was kind of neat with the guy. And we're going to go and bring a Rotar over here now and get a closer look at him. Now, I mentioned he was definitely the more humanoid looking, so his proportions are a lot more similar to what we've seen with a lot of other figures in the Classics line. Has that standard male buck on there. The armor is non-removable on this guy, so this is glued to the figure, but does a good job of capturing the look of the armor that the vintage figure was wearing. And the helmet is also very cool looking. You can see he's got a very unique look to it, the shape of it. It's got some nice metallic silver with some blues and everything seen on the armor. And he's got that very humanoid face underneath there. I do really love the sculpt of the eyes and the eyebrows and everything, because even though we can't see most of his face, he still has quite a bit of intensity there. And just like I talked about with Twistoid, look at the back of that helmet. Yep, that design is there. And again, that design was on the vintage figure, but you couldn't rotate the vintage figure's head around. This one you can. So if you wanted to, you can rotate it around, and it totally looks like he's just got his visor down now. It's kind of a neat design. Alright, so before we move on to talking about accessories and showing you how these guys turn into their top form, we'll go and get the articulation out of the way. It's very, very standard to what we've seen before. One of the big differences, of course, is because of the sculpts of their unique helmets and their armor, the head is going to be slightly hindered, but you can still kind of rotate it so that it folds over the armor. So you can see, still get a pretty good range of motion with the heads, and of course they are still removable. Just like all the other heads in the line, they're just on the little ball joints there, so you can pop them on and off with ease. Just got to give it a nice firm push, and it clips into place. You got those ball jointed shoulders, so the arms can go up, forwards, backwards. You got swivels at the biceps, standard joint at the elbow, swivels at the wrist. So got that torso crunch articulation there. You'll notice that's where I kind of pulled the guy in half there. It's a very similar feature to what we've seen in the past with guys like King Hiss. It's very easy just to pop it apart there. You can see there's a little peg right there on the torso. Clips in there to the lower portion of the body. It's not too loose, but it's very easy to pull it off. All you got to do is kind of bend them the right way, and it snaps apart. Other than that, we do have the regular ball joints at the hips there, so legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards, as well as swivel. You got your standard joints in the knees, swivels at the boot cut, and you got your standard ankle joints. A little bit of a rock there. No pins showing there, and they're nice and tight ankles, which is always very nice. And real quick with Twistoid, all of his articulation functions exactly the same, even though his body is a little bit more blocky. So you can swivel those little clamps there. And then, of course, you guys know how that lower body works. So, articulation, pretty much exactly what you'd expect with these guys. So, we're going to go ahead and get into the portion of transforming them to turn them into the way that I prefer to display these guys. So, they come with a few cool accessories. First of all, each of them does have their top piece, the lower portion that looks like the top straight off the vintage figure. So, if we go ahead and pop those legs off, you see we can do that there. You look at the inside of the top piece, you can see exactly where they'd plug in. There's extra space in the back, which is actually for the back of the figure there. You can snap them into place just like that. And now we've got Rotar in his top form. One thing that's really nice is that with both guys, we've got this great little stand that's included, which will help you to display these guys when they're in top form, since you won't be able to actually, of course, spin them. That is one thing that has been removed. They got the ability to kind of turn this little piece down here, but you can see it doesn't really spin like the old tops. The old ones, you actually would wind them up and then they would spin on their own. These guys are lacking that action feature. So we do have this little stand, which can stand them right up. We'll do the same thing with Twistoid here. He pops right apart. Let's do this real quick. I want to bring this in just to show you. Here's King Hiss, right? He's got that same feature. You can pop him apart just like that. It is worth noting that peg is exactly the same. So you can actually pop off the King Hiss legs. You can put them on Rotar or Twistoid. Both of them work just fine on there. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it's worth noting that it is possible. However, another figure that we can snap in half was Mermista. Her legs don't work because, well, she's got a different connector piece. So, sorry guys, no sexy legs or mermaid fins for your Rotar and Twistoid. Alright, so let's bring in the top piece for Twistoid here. Boom, there we go. His is a nice bright orange in color. I love the paint deco on these, by the way. You got great two-tone paint deco. So there's a nice, metallic silver on the gray for Rotar. Nice metallic orange on top of the flat orange for Twistoid. We got his little display base as well. And now we can display both of these guys the way I feel they were intended to be displayed, in their top forms. So very, very cool looking. Now, they do have some additional accessories which make these guys even more fun. So, first of all, they got accessories that can be held, just like the vintage figures. Rotar's got this really cool axe weapon. It is made of a bit of a softer plastic because of the chain piece here. So you can see it's a little gummy, it flexes around, but you can get him to hold that in either one of his hands there, just like that. And that way you've got his axe for doing some top spin battles there with Twistoid. And then Twistoid has his really funky kind of scythe weapon. And again, this is just like the ones we saw on the vintage figures. Look almost identical. This one's a nice sturdy plastic. It's all a flat orange. There's no extra color on there. Since he does have these clamp hands, it's nice to know that it's molded on the inside so that it actually fits this. You can see he gets a good grip on it. So there, when we can pose these guys holding onto their signature weapons from the vintage line. But that is not all they come with. They also include these extra little spinning pieces. Now, this goes back to the action feature on the vintage toys. On the vintage figures, they also came with these, but the whole point was that you would put these on the ground, you would spin the tops, you would put them on it, and then these would also spin. So this was a thing that would spin with the top and kind of work as an extra battle piece while doing battle. These guys don't spin, but you can connect these. So let me show you how this works. This bottom portion I showed you earlier, that's kind of the mock top spin piece, it pops off. Let's give it a nice little tug there. It's just a little peg that holds it in place. You can pull that off, and then if you'd rather display him this way, he snaps right into that base just like that, and now you can display him with the little spin blade. Rotar works the same way. He's got this awesome little rotary tool, which has just got like little blades on there, just like the vintage figure. Here's another fun thing that's cool about this. It actually also looks like a big crazy sword. So if you want to, you can pose this in his hands, like that. And now it looks like he's holding this big crazy sword, and it does spin. Like, look at that. You can rotate the little blades and actually rotates all the gears there, which is kind of cool. So you can do that, or just like with Twistoid, we can pull the little top piece off the bottom. Just got that little peg there. You can pop them in any of these really, but the middle one there is kind of like the way you would put him on the vintage one. Pops on just like that, and now you can display him with his little spinning things. Look at that. You can even kind of mimic the spin because of the little gears there, which is kind of cool. Whee! So that's kind of fun. Even though they don't have the same action feature as the vintage figures, you can still display them the same way you would display those vintage toys. So kind of neat how that works. So since we keep talking about those vintage toys, it's comparison time. Here you get a look at both Twistoid and Rotar standing alongside their vintage figure counterparts. I don't have all of the weapons, especially for my Rotar, but you get the idea. And hey, here's something else that's pretty nice. Those new little display stands that come with the classics figures, they fit the vintage figures too. So if you're looking for a way to stand up your vintage Rotar and Twistoid, this will help you out. So there you go, my friends. There is a look at the Masters of the Universe Classics Rotar and Twistoid, which was the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. These were some really funky characters in the vintage line, but I love the funky characters. I always have, and I was really anxious to see these guys in classics, and since we were finishing up the vintage line this year, these guys were a must-have. I think they worked out great for Comic-Con exclusives because they're a little bit weird. I could totally see how some people wouldn't want them, but they're pretty cool. I like them a lot. I think the updates were done well, and even though they don't spin like the old ones, I think the added features are kind of cool on these guys. The legs are a nice touch. They're just not for me personally. So like I said, these guys were sold exclusively at the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con. Matty Collector already had their sale, unfortunately, also for their Comic-Con items, and they sold out pretty quick, but hold out hope, guys, because generally Matty puts these exclusives on sale multiple times throughout the year, especially around Christmas time, so just stay tuned to MattyCollector.com, and maybe you'll see them listed again. Happy hunting, my friends, and until next time.